is back up and going. Haven't had to stop and start one here for a few minutes. All right, so let me know if that is working better for you guys on LinkedIn. Just typing in the chat here. Let me know if you're on LinkedIn and you're watching this. Let me know if it's freezing or if it is now working for you. Geez, technical. Again, this wouldn't be an e-commerceaholic live stream. All right, looks like we're up. Looks like we're good. I don't know if LinkedIn's working, but if LinkedIn's not working, I'm going to apologize to you LinkedIners. You're just going to have to make your way over to YouTube to watch this live stream if it is not functioning as it should. Not a whole lot I could do about it. LinkedIn live streaming is brand new. It's experimental. I do all that I can. So again, we're just gonna kind of hit the reset button. We're going to have to, in case you're new around here, we're going to talk about payments. And so I've got Jeff Kohl here. Jeff, again, if you would, go through that introduction one more time. Let everybody know what you do there at APS Payments and what APS Payments is all about.
Sure. So I'm Executive Vice President of Sales. I oversee the sales department and some of the business development. But we, as a firm, are a development shop. So we specialize in integrating payment solutions into ERP platforms, billing platforms, accounting platforms, as well as different e-commerce platforms. And, providing the solution first is important in understanding the different payment workflows that customers, merchants actually have to go through and making the customer experience a lot better. But overall, we provide a solution more so than just good pricing. And I think ultimately shoring up good workflow is what's important. And we continue to launch new integrations. We recently became a official tech partner with Magento, so we're excited. We're now in the marketplace there. And one of the things we do specialize in, besides business to consumer, is business to business level 3 processing. So lowering that underlying interchange rate. And I did want to mention that as well, because that's extremely important in that environment when you're accepting credit cards.
All right. So I'm having all sorts of technical difficulties, but we're going to keep going through this. I'm going to hit this record button real quick just in case something happens and this stream's not going out to the outside world. But most merchants I talk to really don't put any thought whatsoever into payment. They've chosen their payment provider years ago, and unless someone comes to them and tries to sell them on they need a new payment provider to get more sales, they may need to add Amazon Pay to get more sales or something like that. So unless they're sold on that, they put no thought into it whatsoever. How often should a merchant be reevaluating their payment options on their website?
Well, I think quarterly at least, and just to understand the new payment products that are coming out, like Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, any of these alternative payment methods, which are ultimately attached to a credit card anyway. So there's similar fees that are associated with that. Having that integrated in your solution to make sure that your customers are able to pay and buy products from you with their preferred method. So evaluating it, besides evaluating price and getting an audit of your current statement to make sure you're priced the best way, customer experience and workflow is extremely important. And this is a dynamic industry. It's changing all the time. Different gateways that integrate to different platforms, making sure you have redundancy when it comes to phone orders compared to e-commerce orders. It really depends on the actual business model. If you're just a straight business to consumer type e-commerce platform, pretty straightforward. But once you start getting into business to business, you've got a couple different ways that you're accepting payments. So making sure that you can reconcile accounts, that you're not having issues with human error, and also making it easy for your customers to purchase from you, I think it's important to evaluate quarterly, if not definitely annually. But if not, I would be evaluating that quarterly.
Now, are there things other than rates that they really should be looking at when evaluating different payment providers?
Yeah, so The rates, I mean, there's really a couple different rate structures, and most people are familiar, especially with e-commerce, with the flat rate with PayPal and Stripe and Intuit. These companies typically price it like a 2.9% and 30 cents, and obviously there's definitely some better rates to be had there. But as far as functionality, you want to make sure that if say for example you're a business to business, and I do want to focus on that a little bit. I know this was more of a
Sure.
B2C, and business to business, you might have a couple of different ways that you're processing payments. So you might have a business to business e-commerce platform that a customer would come in, put an order together, and run that transaction. But you're also taking phone orders. So if you're running, say, for example, an ERP like SAP Business One, you're going to want to have an integration for payments there. And that gives you the ability to take a phone order, run a transaction against an outstanding invoice, and apply that accordingly for that customer. Some of the other things to think about is, say you're a distributor that has potential back-ordered products. The order is put online, and then that order is being passed on a sales order with a pre-authorization against that order. You got to have a middleware that's passing that order into the ERP, so you can account for shipping, potential back order products, and adjust that particular sale to the right amount to accommodate those particular products that you're purchasing. So when you're thinking about a solution, you really need to understand, where are you taking payments, first of all. So the discovery part is very important when you're coming onto a new platform or building out a new e-commerce platform. So payments should be part of the initial RFP process, in my opinion, because if you're going down a road where you're looking at payments in the hindsight, you might have some complexities that are not the best workflow for you in your business. So it's extremely important.
Can you give us some examples of some of those complexities that you've seen in businesses where it kind of snuck up and bit them when they weren't really thinking about that when choosing payment providers?
Sure. So one example would be, you're deploying, say, for example, PayPal online, and you're also running, I'll use the same example, SAP Business One, and you're using a different provider integrated into that solution. You're really using two different processors, two different gateways, and that is not going to share a credit card token. So if you're storing those actual credit card tokens in one gateway online, but you need the ability to refund within your ERP, without a redundant gateway, you will not have access to that token or that actual transaction. So now you're going to be having to log into the admin panel online, when you might have multiple clerks that need to actually refund certain orders or issue changes on a particular order. Having a redundant gateway is extremely important. So when you're deploying two different processors, two different gateways, now those different workflows are siloed, and I think that's really important, specifically in business to business, to have a redundant gateway both on your e-commerce platform as well within your ERP or billing platform that you're currently using or employing internally.
All right, if you're watching this, I'm personally on my computer having all sorts of technical difficulties and glitches. So comment in the comments of the video. Let me know you're there. Let me know how good the quality is. Better yet, let me know if you've got any payment questions. As always, we are here to serve you. My questions are always fluff, intentionally so. All the good questions come from you guys. So if you're watching this, you have questions about payments, B2B or B2C payments, anything at all, let me know in the comments, and we will make sure we address those, and you can help steer this conversation. So you had talked about pricing models a little bit. You touched on kind of the percentage pricing model. Can you maybe dive into some of the various pricing models that are out there for payment providers, and then where APS Payments falls within that?
Sure, happy to do that. So the first one we talked about briefly is flat rate pricing, which are typically held by firms like PayPal, Stripe, and I'm sure anyone that's built out an e-commerce platform are familiar with those names. They typically price on a flat rate model, which is they come in at 2.9%, possibly 30 cents a transaction. When you hit certain volume thresholds, they will lower that. So that's a standard flat rate pricing. Another one we see in the industry is what's called tiered pricing, and that is really where you have different flat rates dependent upon the card type that you're accepting. So you could have a 3-tier, a 5-tier, and I've seen 7 tiers. So they set up an actual rate for a debit card transaction, another rate for consumer cards, another rate for rewards cards, and then a fourth or fifth rate on business cards, which typically hold a higher interchange rate. So that's flat rate pricing, tiered pricing. And then interchange plus is the pricing that we typically employ and utilize. And interchange plus pricing, a good analogy of that would be a dollar store. You've got a dollar store. So everything you go into that store, everything you buy is $1, regardless of the cost of that particular product. And that would be similar to flat rate pricing. And then there's a store next to it that's called a 5-cent markup store. And this is similar to Interchange Plus, whereas regardless of the price of the product that you have in the store, they're only adding 5 cents to that particular product. So if it costs 25 cents, you're paying 30 cents. If it costs 95 cents, you're paying $1. And that's a good analogy for flat rate versus Interchange Plus. The beauty of Interchange Plus is if you're taking a good number of debit cards or consumer cards that fall into a rate that's, as far as an interchange rate, below 2%, we're only adding that additional markup on that actual hard cost. That's extremely important for level 3 processing. And I know you touched on it last week with Frederick specifically, and he mentioned he met a firm at Magento, Imagine, that supports that automatically in Magento, and we do support level 3 in Magento. He was referring to us, and that's what we also support within our ERP integrations. Level 3 processing actually drives down the interchange rate being paid back to the issuing banks. It does require additional data points, things like invoice number, item description, quantity, ship to zip code, and there's about 13 of them. We pull these data points automatically to make sure that we're qualifying for level 3, and we submit them on behalf of the customer. This is good because it doesn't require additional manual entry to qualify for those lower level 3 rates. And when you start getting into large ticket and you're actually doing transactions over 7,500, there's another tier called large ticket that can lower all the way down to 0.7% in the underlying interchange rate on those particular transactions. So if you're not implementing level 3 and you're doing large transactions in a business-to-business environment, level 3 is critical for the business. And I think that's something that a lot of firms aren't even aware of and don't know how to effectively implement. If you're on a flat rate pricing, there's no way for me to pass those lower interchange rates. So Interchange Plus is really the only true way to pass level 3 savings on to the merchant. I think that's important to understand.
Now, I want to make sure we clarify here, just for those that maybe they didn't watch the stream last week, maybe they're not familiar with the term. Could you give us a clear definition of what level 3 means?
Sure. So level 3 came out in around 2008, and it was specifically designed to incentivize businesses that are doing business to business or business to government transactions to accept more credit cards. And the benefit of this, and this product is widely available for anyone in a wholesale environment, whether you're a manufacturer, distributor, wholesale company in general. So what it actually does, if you're able to prove that is a true business to business transaction, you can lower the actual interchange rate that is paid to the issuing bank. And so level 3 is really a product specific to those business to business companies or business to government companies. And if they're accepting credit cards, the card brands as well as the issuing banks definitely want you to do more credit card transactions because they're typically a higher ticket. But they're offering this product to you. But unfortunately, a lot of these companies aren't implementing this particular product, even though it's been around since 2008. So it's hugely valuable as far as cutting your cost on your merchant account.
All right, we have a question in the chat here on LinkedIn, and Ryan, thanks for watching. I appreciate your participation and your question here. We're going to talk about in general. He has kind of a general question, and he really wants to learn more about payments for high-risk clients. He specifically mentioned CBD cannabis, e-cigs, might group firearms into that as well. Can you kind of fill us in on some of the challenges of payments for those types of merchants, maybe how they overcome those? And is that a market that APS actually has some sort of solution for?
Yeah, there's a lot of gray area, and I mean we can focus on CBD, but high risk in general. So, and that's all associated with the chargeback risk and exposure that the acquiring banks are experiencing on those particular type of merchants. Uh, these are really banks, and the acquiring banks have opened up CBD programs, some pilot programs around it, but unfortunately, because of the chargebacks and the laws federally, a lot of the banks just don't want to touch it. There's a handful of banks that will take CBD accounts and high risk accounts, but there's some strict guidelines around chargeback ratio. And if they're looking at a company that's not necessarily financially healthy or they have extremely high chargeback exposure, a lot of banks just won't touch them. And CBD is one of those areas where it opens up, and then certain processors close it down and will close that account, and they have nowhere to go with those particular merchant accounts. We do some high risk. It's not an industry that we really focus on. We do high risk because we have certain acquiring banks that we partner with that do offer those programs, but it's not an industry we particularly focus on because we want to keep our customers for a long period of time. But with that said, CBD is one of those areas that we get a lot of calls on. It's just something we currently aren't supporting, but as some of the banks open that up, we're definitely going to be offering those products out.
Thank you, Ryan, for that question. If you have a more specific question or that opened up anything else you want us to dive into in regards to that topic, please post your follow-up questions. For everybody that's watching, if you're enjoying this, do me a favor, give me a thumbs up on the video. Help us spread the word. Help everybody know that this live stream is going on. Who knows, it may be useful for someone and they may be able to get their questions asked and answered. Keep those questions coming. We'll continue going through mine until we see more questions from the live stream. So if a merchant is truly omni-channel, right? They're not just selling on an e-commerce website, and maybe they're accepting payments at a point of sale terminal or on the phone or wherever they may be accepting payments. Are there additional things that they should be evaluating and factoring into that payment provider evaluation?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So say, for example, you do have an e-commerce platform. You're also taking phone orders through an accounting platform, and then you might have a showroom or some retail environments. There's a likelihood that you might be using multiple vendors in that environment or merchant service providers. So the things that I would be aware of is, one, if you're doing point of sale, EMV. So EMV is EuroPay, MasterCard, Visa. It's the chip card. There's a chip on the new credit cards, and that actually originates a 4-digit PIN every time you use it. And there's a security level there. So you want to make sure if you're using a point of sale that you have an integrated solution that supports EMV at the terminal level. So that's pretty paramount for face-to-face transactions. If you are taking phone orders, you want to make sure you're utilizing a payment gateway that's integrated into your accounting or a platform or ERP platform where you're taking those orders. You might be logging into a virtual terminal, which is in essence a payment gateway. You want to make sure that those are PCI DSS compliant for security reasons and have some levels of security around potential fraud, like AVS, address verification, CVV, and tokenization, so you can store those credit cards for future transactions if you have repeat customers. Those are all really based upon security and integrations, and those are things that you definitely want to evaluate. If you have different platforms where you're taking payments, making sure that the provider you're looking at is able to integrate into all those different payments. It gets really frustrating when you're dealing with multiple providers. So as an example, you might be providing or have an e-commerce platform with a processor agnostic gateway. So you're dealing with a merchant service provider, you're dealing with a separate vendor for the gateway on your e-commerce platform. And then it might hold true, same in the point of sale. You might be dealing with a gateway that is also a third-party gateway and a different processor in that environment. So I think it's important to have one vendor because they're going to understand your business, the way you're taking payments, be able to support the gateway, the integrations, the actual merchant account, So if there's any issues, they can resolve them fairly quickly. And that's really been a big part of our model, is to make sure we're providing all of those components and all of those integrations to the different verticals or different channels that you're actually accepting payments. And I think that's something that's a lot of times hindsight, because they think, oh, we like this e-commerce platform, we like this accounting software, we like this point of sale, yet we haven't done the due diligence before signing these agreements to make sure that the payment provider that we're selecting can integrate to all those different channels as far as payments is concerned. I think that's important.
Definitely. Now, the payment industry is always changing. It's a lot like e-commerce. It's always evolving. The landscape is shifting. And, I saw the TSYS guys at IRCE a couple of days ago. And so, you had the news, weeks ago at this point, that TSYS and Global Payments, two industry giants, are merging. How do things like that affect payment processors like APS and the merchants that use them?
Sure, and that's a good point. And there's been a lot of mergers, so we'll focus on that one first. TSYS, even before Global came in, they acquired TransFirst in 2016, and a bunch of smaller merchant service providers. They also acquired Cayenne, which is known for a lot of point of sale integrations, and they have the Genius product, which is a great product. So this acquisitions in this industry has been going on for quite a while, and then Global came in and acquired TSYS. You also had WorldPay acquire Paymetrics, which is an integrator into some of the larger enterprise software platforms, and then FIS acquired WorldPay, and then you had First Data acquired Card Connect, which is also a large enterprise integrator for payments, and First Data was then acquired by Fiserv. So there's been quite a few acquisitions in this industry. It's pretty normal. It's been going on for quite a while. You got to remember, there's a handful of core processors in this industry, like TSYS Global, WorldPay, Elavon. One of the things that we do is we make sure we have agreements with all those core processors. That gives us flexibility on where we board merchant accounts, and that goes back to the high risk question. Some acquiring banks and some processors just don't want to accept certain merchants, so it's good to have alternatives when you're dealing with a merchant service provider. This industry is there's a lot of different providers out there that write independent sales agreements with the different core processors. And they board you, and then they turn you over to that processor. Service, I think, is paramount, because when you're dealing with a larger company, you typically know you're being put into an automated phone system. Service is extremely important. So when you're dealing with a smaller firm that has alternatives to board your merchant account, you're typically going to get better service. And when you're getting payment and you want to make sure you're getting funded, you want to make sure you have a provider that is responsive, that you can get a live person on the phone. The last thing you want is something to go down and you can't get that corrected and you can no longer accept payment. And I've heard horror stories about websites or gateways going down where you're not able to run payments and you're losing money in that environment. So it's really important that can be solved very quickly. And I think searching for a provider that, in a commoditized industry, let's face it, the merchant services is really a commoditized industry. But, finding a provider that can provide, really good integrations that help to automate workflow and make sure you can reconcile accounts. But secondly, a company that can provide really good service and is super responsive. Those are things that should be considered when selecting a merchant service provider, for sure. But again, this industry, as far as acquisitions, this has been going on for a long time. It's just the recent acquisitions have been fairly large, so they get a lot more press.
So there are a ton of payment options out there. And there's, a lot of platforms coming out with payment options every day. You've got, I can't even name them all. There's Amazon Pay and Google Pay and Apple Pay, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have a Facebook Pay pretty soon. How many payment options should a merchant try to put on their website? Should they try to, handle all of them? Should they, do a select few? And then how does that happen? How does that interaction happen with the services you provide as far as, taking credit cards?
Sure. Those, well, I mean, Apple Pay and things like that, and have been around for a while now. And all those alternative payment methods have been around. And the reality is for card present, you can do those payments on a terminal. It's been fairly new for websites. Our gateway can support it for Apple Pay. I really think it depends upon your customer and what they're requesting. Ultimately, keep in mind when you're utilizing something like Apple Pay, it's just ease of use, one click button and you run the payment. So if you can make it easier for your customers to pay, I think that's what's important. It's really more about the customer experience. I don't know about you, but if I get on a website, it takes me too long to actually run an order. I tend to log off and say, well, I don't. This is just a pain. So it's nice to have services like Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, the different alternative methods that are out there that make the customer experience easier to facilitate that payment. I think ultimately that's what's important. I don't get a ton of requests for e-commerce. As an organization, we've started to get more of those requests recently. So we're definitely starting to look at implementing more of those into our extensions to the different e-commerce platforms. But in the future, I'm going to see more of that. Those are going to continue to come out. Everyone's competing in that space. Keep in mind, those are all tied to a credit card ultimately, from what I understand. And there is a similar hard cost associated with that, very similar to the interchange rate or the hard cost you're paying on a merchant account. So typically it's not less expensive, but again, it does create a better experience for your customer to utilize those payments.
All right, if you're out there watching, keep those questions coming. We're going to blaze through my questions. They're basic anyway, and we're gonna just start rambling about God knows what if you guys don't bail me out and ask the good questions. So post those in the chat, and we will do everything we can to get around to those. Again, we are live streaming on quite a few platforms at the moment, and I am trying to check on all of them just to make sure they're all going smoothly. So again, we're gonna keep rolling through my questions until you guys speak up. Maybe we answered all your questions. We've talked about payments quite a bit, but I think it's a very important and underserved topic when it comes to e-commerce. And one of the things that merchants do tend to notice and pay attention to these days is Pci Compliance. And Pci Compliance is extremely important when it comes to taking payments online. I mean, that's really what prompted Pci Compliance in general, is so people are not doing stupid things like storing credit cards in plain text in a flat file on their website. So, give us some insight as to how certain types of payment providers, either help or hinder that Pci compliance, because not all of them are created equal. So, what are maybe some differences between payment providers that separate them from a Pci compliance standpoint?
Well, I think that really goes back to the payment gateway. And so there's other, we'll talk about some of the other providers that go to another level of potential fraud. And if you're at Imagine, you ran into quite a few of them, ClearSale and just to name one. But the gateway, payment gateways typically have some levels of security right out the gate. So one being AVS, which is address verification, to make sure that the card holder's zip code and actual digits on their address match the actual card holder's data. And you can set some things at the gateway level that if that doesn't match, it's going to decline that particular transaction. Another one is collecting CVV, that 3-digit code on Visa, MasterCard, and Discover, or the 4-digit code on American Express. You can set the payment gateway to actually require that CVV to match. And those are the first level of security, and that does happen at the payment gateway level. As far as the holding 16 digits of the credit card on the website, that's a big no-no. You don't want to do that. And most payment gateways these days offer what's called tokenization. So what that means is the card data is being stored away from the actual website in a secure server with the payment gateway. The only thing that's stored locally is a token ID, and that's able to reference the first few digits to know whether it's a Visa or MasterCard, and the last 4 digits so you can reference the actual card. And if you log into Amazon or any of those other websites that offer tokenization, you know what card's on file and you know what card you're going to charge, and you're able to store multiple cards in a tokenized fashion. Those are, just those three alone, the AVS, the CVV, and tokenization are extremely important that you're implementing that on an e-commerce platform. There's also a next level of fraud that's supported by these third-party firms that do things. I don't want to talk to their business, but they actually offer another level of fraud prevention, and they do things where they go out and source where that card's been used, IP addresses to make sure it's associated with that card, and some additional levels of security to avoid fraud. The one thing that we run into is anyone that's doing international transactions. So you're running a business and you're getting a lot of international customers that are coming onto your website and purchasing product. That adds another level of potential fraud. And if you are doing a good number of international transactions, you might want to deploy one of these larger fraud protection products like I Spy Fraud, Clear Sale, and there's a bunch of other ones out there. I don't have them off the top of my head, but those create another level of security around fraud, and those are extremely important. The last thing you want to do is send out product and find out that you're not able to accept payment for that. That's just not a good business model. So fraud protection, it's extremely important, and there are some processors that don't help set up those levels at the gateway, and those are things that we definitely want to do as a merchant service provider to make sure we're protecting our merchants and ultimately allowing them to get paid on their product and not having fraudulent transactions. The other thing we do see is what's called auth shopping, and this is an interesting thing that happens in this world. Is if someone gets access to your gateway, they might take 50,000 stolen cards and run them through your gateway very quickly to see if they're good or not. So this does happen periodically with potential breach. So you can set levels on your merchant account for the number of transactions that you're actually doing or the volume that you typically do. So if you're getting close to that level, or someone comes in and starts running a ton of stolen credit cards through your gateway, those will be triggered, and it will close it up so we can make some changes around that and change passwords and things of that nature. So there's a lot of things that can happen at the gateway level. And then again, you can deploy those third-party products for additional fraud protection.
I was actually talking to a merchant recently that had this problem. There was an exploit in a gateway. I won't mention which gateway, but it was an exploit in their module tied to an e-commerce platform. And I think they received a bill one month for like 60 or 70 grand for fees for credit cards that someone used the exploit to just test stolen cards to see if they were still good. And so, that's kind of what you're talking about with the rate limit to at least minimize the impact of that. And
Sure.
so is that something you do automatically, or does someone have to manually set that up?
We do that automatically, and it's part of our risk risk procedures is to set that, and that's really to protect the merchant and to protect us. If you have all those transactions fraudulently running through, keep in mind there's still a hard cost on those transactions. So that's the bill that you're talking about, TJ. If I typically run 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 transactions through my website, and all of a sudden 50,000 come running through, and there's nothing in place to protect that, you're going to get a bill for those 50,000 transactions. And depending upon how you're priced as far as a transaction fee, that can get very expensive. You can imagine if it's 30 cents, it's going to get real expensive. If you're priced even at 5 cents a transaction, it can get expensive. And that's something you definitely want to have set up within your gateway and your merchant service provider, where they're setting those limits and flagging immediately when those transactions go well over what you typically do in a month or a day for that matter. And again, those can be set at a daily level, weekly level, monthly level. And yeah, we do implement that on every single merchant that we board for sure. And we've seen those. We've seen statements where that auth shopping happened, and that's what we refer to it as, and they got a large bill. And last thing you want to do is, and you're kind of bound to pay that, unfortunately, because those weren't set in place. Sometimes the processor will split that with you, or work with you on it. But a lot of times they just say, nope, that's on you guys. You had the ability to log into your gateway and set those parameters, but you didn't do so, so it's on you. And it's something to definitely be concerned about. And if you are selecting a provider or currently have a provider, you should have those conversations, because you never know when that hits. Someone somehow gets access to your gateway through a keylogger, or gets the password and login information, and next thing you know, they're uploading and dumping a ton of transactions through there. And if you don't catch it, it gets very expensive.
All right, we've got a couple of questions here in the chat. First, we're going to go to Max Pronko over on YouTube. Max, thank you for watching, and thanks for your question. Max's question is, how's your onboarding process look like for new tech agencies?
So as far as partnering, yeah, that's a great question. So we have, our business model is channel driven. We are completely partner centric. So we do not even solicit end users. We don't have telemarketing, which is not normal for merchant services. So we have channel reps specific to Magento, eCommerce, or if it's an ERP. So the process is to reach out to us, apspayments.com. And you can fill out a form with questions, with your contact information, and the appropriate channel manager will reach out to you and schedule a demonstration or a Zoom meeting to actually show you our partner program. And then you can sign up with us. We do have a referral agreement. We can talk a little bit more about what that looks like. But the process is fairly quick. And typically someone will come to us with a particular customer in mind, and we will do a discovery around that customer, sign you up as a partner. And we've got well over 400 partners now and growing. And so that's definitely a quick process to get you signed up. So just reach out to us. The appropriate channel manager will reach out to schedule an actual Zoom meeting and go through our partner program and walk you through next steps.
All right, the next question comes from Kirill over on LinkedIn, and his question is, do you have an app for mobile device to communicate with offline hardware through mobile deep linking, like web API, for PayPal, basically a light middleware to get rid of a heavy POS or accounting solutions?
Yeah, we do have a mobile solution, for similar like what Square offers. And the issue is, what is the middleware? So we're not in the game of middleware, and we build integrations for payments, but the middleware business in itself is pretty complex. And so there are a lot of firms out there that provide these middleware products. We do have a mobile solution that you can take transactions and export them from our gateway and import that into another platform. So there's that functionality. But as far as automating those particular payments and flowing those back into the website, it still does require a middleware provider. And we work with a lot of middleware providers. We don't want to step on their toes, so we can make some recommendations around that. And whether it's mobile to e-commerce or e-commerce to ERP, there's a good number of middleware providers that we already work with and partner with, and they tend to refer deals to us because we have the integrations on both sides of that transaction. So I don't know if I answered your question there, but again, we don't have the middleware, but we do have a mobile solution for sure.
Yeah, and if you're not satisfied with that answer, then give us hell about it. Just post it in the chat, follow up. We'll try to make sure we do all we can to get it answered. Keep those questions coming. Again, my questions, I've just got a few more here. We're going to, try to go. We've got about 15 more minutes we're going to stream, as long as we don't run out of things to talk about. So most merchants just think of, and this actually goes to similar to that kind of middleware or mobile solution question. Most merchants just think of payments as taking credit cards on the website. That's the only reason they think about it. Maybe they've got a point of sale that needs payments or something like that. But what other features do you provide that might be useful for a merchant? And can you give us some interesting examples of how your merchants have used those capabilities?
Yeah, sure. So, well, We also offer, in the U.S. we offer ACH payments, which are really bank payments in essence, and that's fully integrated into our solutions as well. And that's really U.S. driven. We are an international processor, so in Canada there's direct debit, in Europe it's SEPA, and there's a lot of different rails as far as banking transactions are concerned. But in the U.S. we do offer ACH. As a firm, we're really a development shop, and the main focus for us is building out integrations into ERP platforms, e-commerce platforms, and we do have mobile. We have integrated into a ton of point of sale systems as well for retail. We also work with a lot of processor agnostic gateways and integrate there. So we're fairly robust when it comes to our integration platforms. We also have a really exciting click to pay product that we've integrated into most of the ERPs, and that allows a merchant to send out an invoice to a customer, and the customer will facilitate that payment, and that will come back into the actual ERP as a paid invoice. And that's been a great product. Our customers who have boarded on that love it. They get paid quicker, and they no longer have to touch credit cards in that environment. In our process, we really want to do a thorough discovery with the actual merchant before we even talk about boarding them, because we want to understand their workflows and take a consultative approach to understand their different payment workflows, their needs, and really advise them on what our solutions can do for them and what the best workflow is and best practices are around payments. That's really what we really want to focus on. Pricing is, we can all go to zero and it's commoditized when you talk about pricing, but solution is really where we want to focus on. Besides the e-commerce platforms, supporting level 3 on Magento, WooCommerce, and we are coming out with a new product on BigCommerce, which historically has been a closed API around payments. What a great platform. And they've actually been working with us to build out a really new product that will support level 3 here very soon. So level 3 for us has been the big differentiator in the wholesale environment. But I know that was a long-winded answer, but nonetheless, it's.
I love long-winded answers. It make it really easy on me. I just get to sit back, kick my feet up, drink some whiskey. Man, it's good. Those are great. You mentioned BigCommerce though, and we're actually working to grow our BigCommerce audience right now. If you're from BigCommerce or you use BigCommerce and you're watching right now, post in the chat. Let me know. But from that perspective, what all platforms do you support? At least what are the big ones that you support?
Specific to e-commerce, we'll start there. So Magento, we've been supporting for quite a while. BigCommerce, we have a product. We are integrated to BigCommerce. It doesn't have some features, but we've come out with a new product that is now offering tokenization and soon to be offering level 3 on BigCommerce. WooCommerce we work with. We also are working with Miva now to build out an integration, PrestaShop, and then a ton of smaller e-commerce platforms, and then some of the proprietary shopping carts like Argentus and WebJaguar that we also work with. And we're open to developing on any platform. And if it's proprietary, we can support developing our integration for payments on a proprietary shopping cart. So that's e-commerce. When it comes to ERP, we have integrations into SAP Business One, Sage 100, Sage 300, Sage Pro. Acumatica is a new cloud-based product that's getting a lot of steam, and BigCommerce is actually the official e-commerce platform now for Acumatica, so that's exciting. So Acumatica is picking up a bunch of steam. We're currently working on an Intact integration, just to name a few. Some of the legacy products like Adagio and AccountMate, we've already built integrations, and that's just to name a few. I mean, we're looking at Salesforce, and we have Xtuple coming out, and there's integrations into property management systems for hotel. We're pretty wide in the hotel space. We have a good number of merchants, and we're the endorsed provider for the Independent Lodging Industry Association, as well as the California Lodging Industry Association, Stash Hotel, Magnuson Hotel Group. So we have a big footprint in the hotel space as well. And I could just keep going. I mean, we continue to come out with new integrations. We've had some phenomenal growth built upon these solutions, and all of that business comes from the partners and the consultants that are dealing with these companies. and want to make sure that they don't have to be a payment consultant. They want to rely on a partner like us to come in when it comes time to talk about payments. And so if there's a platform that has an antiquated payment integration and you think we might be a good fit for potentially developing with that publisher a new robust payment integration, we're open to those conversations. If you're launching a new product or anything for that matter around payments, we're happy to talk about integrating what we can do to help service that payment workflow.
All right, so I've only got a couple of questions left. We're going to go about 10 more minutes. So, if you have any questions, go ahead and get those in, and we'll do all we can to answer those. Now, you had mentioned earlier a little bit about B2B payments, and we covered that in great depth last week, but I definitely wanted to touch on it some. Would you kind of maybe give us some insights as to the differences between B2C payments, B2B payments, and kind of what APS has to offer in that arena?
Sure. B2C is pretty straightforward. If we're talking about e-commerce, B2C, you've got a straight sale. You got products, inventories being tracked accordingly on your website, and it's just a straight sale. The order is fulfilled and shipped to the customer. If you're talking B2C for retail and you got a point of sale system, it's pretty straightforward there as well. B2B adds some complexities, and the complexities are things like back ordered products, custom orders. So as an example, if I go online and I'm a business purchasing product from another business or a manufacturer or distributor, I might be putting a pre-authorization on that website. That sales order with the actual credit card token needs to pass into their accounting platform. And that allows the merchant to take that order and apply shipping and then capture for a higher amount, or call the customer and adjust that order because there might be some back-ordered products that they basically want to lower that transaction volume or on that particular transaction because they just don't have certain products available and they want to ship out what's actually available. So being able to pass that token ID with the order into the ERP through a middleware is extremely important. So those are things that you have to consider. The other thing that's very different from B2C and B2B is obviously level 3 processing. And if you're not supporting it automatically where the data points are being passed with that transaction, there's a lot of manual entry that's required. And if you miss one of those line items with the transaction, you're not going to qualify for level 3. So a card that typically holds an interchange rate of 2.7, if you're not passing level 3 data, that 2.7 stays intact. But if you are, and it's a transaction even under $7,500, that on average will drop that 2.7 down to 1.9%. So with B2B, level 3 is paramount, and you really have to implement something that's going to support that, whether it's a gateway or an integration that automates that process. You definitely want to be considering that with your merchant service provider and really reducing your fees. I think that's extremely important. It's something that we get on a lot of calls with businesses that don't even know about level 3, and it's been around since 2008. So if you're a consultant advisor to a manufacturer, distributor, or wholesale company, you want to start having that conversation, because if you bring them to a firm that can implement level 3 and lower their cost, you're going to be a hero to that particular customer. And you're going to also offset some cost for potentially a new product. If you want to get them onto Magento 2 and there's some cost associated with that, or you're selling them a new platform or trying to implement a new platform, we'll come in at a negative cost to them and help offset that during the RFP process. And a lot of our partners are using us in that manner, where they include us in the RFP process to ultimately offset some of the costs that the customer might be incurring by implementing a new solution.
All right, guys, we're pretty much through all of my questions. We've got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to kill a couple of minutes just to wait and make sure no one else has any questions. Post those. Again, if you're watching this, if you're on YouTube and you're watching it, you're new around here, you like this kind of thing, and you want to get more from your e-commerce store, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Tap that notification bell while you're at it. A thumbs up on the video, regardless of what platform you're on, always helps. Looks like we've got Goldie Chan in the chat, the queen of LinkedIn live streaming over on LinkedIn. Goldie, I'm very jealous of your setup because Goldie, she has a fantastic live stream. She does the whole thing on a phone. I'm going to show you real quick. I've done this today. I had some people ask me today about my live stream setup. I'm going to do this just to show why I'm jealous of Goldie and her phone, right? I'm going to cut that off real quick because we don't want the audio from that nonsense right there. But let's see here. See if I can turn the audio off on that or mute it perhaps. Right there. Look at there. We got the mute. I'm going to kick back over. I've got my phone here, and we're going to try to cut to that. Okay. So now we see this is my live stream setup, right? We've got green screen. We've got lights on the green screen. We've got stuff over here so I can pull your chat. Of course, I've got my questions right here, and then I'm trying to check on the YouTube stream. I've got LinkedIn stream, which is frozen. LinkedIn's been frozen for me the whole time. I can't see the stream at all, so I don't know what's going on with that. And then, of course, this is the output. That thing right in front of us there is the output with the camera right above that, and then mission control over there, of course, with the lights, then the window to add a little more lights and the microphone. That right there is why I'm jealous of Goldie's setup, because that is just insane. And I've been trying to test with the mobile setup this morning just to see if we can't make this simpler, because this is the last live stream I'm going to do from this office for over a month. And so, you know, we've got to get the mobile stream going. Eddie, just checking to see if there's any questions. I don't see any questions as of yet. So I think we're going to call that a live stream. If you would, Jeff, kind of, give us the elevator pitch for APS Payments and how you differ from any other payment processor out there.
Sure. So a couple things. We don't solicit end users at all. Every opportunity that comes to us comes by way of a consultant or a developer or a VAR, a reseller of a particular software. That's pretty important. And we want to involve the consultant in every step of the way, because they typically understand their business model and workflow better than anyone else. So that's pretty paramount for us. The other part is the integrations we build. So we in-house build integrations for payment workflow into different platforms, and we're continuing to launch new products. That's a big differentiator as well. Also, the process that we go through, I think, is pretty important, and we keep that process consistent. And that goes with showing the analysis of their particular statement and what they currently do to see what we potentially could save them. Also, we offer our integration typically at no cost. And the beauty is we offer the integration, we support the integration, we offer the payment gateway that is working with that particular integration, and we service the merchant account. So all three of those components. We also have live customer service. You're not going to get put into an automated phone system. I think in a commoditized industry, like we talked about earlier, having someone on the phone that can actually service your account fairly quickly, I think is important. And especially when you're trying to accept payments, if anything goes wrong, you don't want to lose the ability to get paid. And I think that's another thing that we hear from a lot of our customers that have boarded with us. Wow, you guys are really responsive. And so in a commoditized industry, there's really two things that differentiate us: the integrations that we build and the level of responsiveness and service that we provide to our customers and partners alike. That's the big differentiator. And to get a hold of us, apspayments.com. There's a form you can fill out. Again, apspayments.com. If you want to send me an email, it's jkohl, Kohl, at apspayments.com. Happy to talk to you if you have any additional questions. And I can direct you to the right channel manager if you do. Are you interested in partnering with APS? We'd happy to have a conversation with you. And that's really it. TJ, I appreciate being on the stream, and thanks for including me today.
Oh, it's great, man, and lots of great information. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I feel like that cost us a few viewers, definitely cost us some YouTube viewers. I don't know why that stream started over. It's not supposed to, but we're always continuously trying to improve, which means sometimes we run into some glitches. Again, I'm going to be on the road for the next month, but we're going to still bring you live streams each and every Friday. I have no idea what we're live streaming about for the next 4 weeks because Emma hasn't scheduled those yet. So I don't know if we're still working on solidifying that schedule or if we just haven't posted them yet to the calendar. But we will have a live stream every Friday. I've got some really interesting stuff I'm working on for the next. It'll probably be in a month or so. But I'm actually talking to some folks from some major retailers about coming on, talking about analytics, and then we're going to have the folks from Glue.io to come on and show you how to utilize those same analytics that we're dealing with, or that the major merchants are dealing with. So I'm excited about that. That one's going to be fun. I want to thank Jeff for joining the live stream, and I look forward to seeing everybody next week. Any parting shots there, Jeff?
No, I just appreciate the time with you, TJ. And again, thanks for having me, and hope to see you soon, and keep the dialogue open around payments. Love it.
Absolutely.
Have a great week and a good 4th of July as well.
Yes, definitely an interesting 4th of July coming up. I'm not going to tell everybody about it. I don't know if we're streaming next week because of 4th of July. I think probably I shouldn't stream. What do you think, Jeff? You think I should stream the day after 4th? Is anybody working the day after 4th of July? If you're watching this right now, post in the comments whether or not you would actually watch a live stream on July 5th, or if you're just going to be hungover somewhere trying to get through the day.
I'll be working.
Yeah, I'll be working as well, but always interested in what other people have going on, and whether we stream next week or whether we don't, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next stream.